Hi everyone, today we are going to go over some of the basics of just the editing setup using a non-linear editing system like Premiere Pro, although you could use any editing system really, because what we're just going over today is just some of the basics of the setup that might seem very elementary, but they're very necessary, and if you don't do them, you can get confusing down the line. And in the beginning of this, we might cover some things that, yes, are very elementary, but sometimes people forget this, or sometimes people don't know, and just it's always good to relearn things anyway. But let's go ahead and jump right in. So the first thing you want to do before you start an editing system is you want to set up what you're going to be saving to. So for instance, first off, I'm going to put in my hard drive that I'm going to be using. Now, if you'll notice, it just popped up here on the screen. Now, here's another it might seem very elementary for some people, but some people don't know this. When you click on this, this pops up, as you can see, but this is not your hard drive. And, again, some people might already know this, some people don't, but this is not your hard drive. This is your hard drive here, because again, I could literally X out of this and go to what's the Finder, or again, if it's Windows, you have something else. It's a little different, but it would open a window. And again, you want to make sure you're going to your hard drive here. That's why you name it. Like I named mine Night because I like night. I also like things like movies, like Batman. But yeah, anyway, so here's your hard drive. You want to make sure you're always clicked here when you're going to. So I got a bunch of different folders here, but right now I'm using mock film folder for where you're going to be saving your project. Now, as you see here, before you start your project, you want to make sure you have folders for everything you need. You want to make sure you have an audio folder for all your audio. And you might even create another folder in your audio folder for music, or music, online music versus music that you got the license to, or the again, dialogue from the film. A folder for exports. These are what you're going to be putting all your exports when you maybe make a first cut or an assembly, first assembly or final edit, etc. You want a place where you put your footage. Libraries where you put basically the editing system, the editing nonlinear editing system. File is where we have from Premiere Pro. You can put music again. You could have a separate here, or you could put that in there. Visual assets. These are things like maybe you might have, for instance, pics, pictures and stuff like that, or B footage maybe, or computers, composites from CGI, etc. And again, you might very well have multiple folders in there too. But you want to make sure you have this organized first, like this, and then even in the footage, I recommend literally start, especially if you have a film with multiple scenes, again, scenes that are labeled from how it's labeled in the script, you would want to start creating scene folders as well. So I got just a piece of footage here that I'm just going to use for example when we get into the system. So you want this actually set up first before you even enter into the non-linear editing system. But let's go ahead now and open up a new Premiere Pro. So the first thing you need to do once you have opened your project, again, whether it's Premiere Pro or DaVinci or Final Cut Pro, you want to open a new project, and usually it should give you an option of where you're going to save. Again, so you can title it. Again, you want to title it something that will, something that'll work. I don't know if you hear my computer whirring, but it's making some noise just because it takes a lot of RAM to open Premiere Pro. So let's say mock film right now. But again, either way, you want to name it so that you can find it and know what you're looking for. Location though, you want to choose your location. So here you want to go choose location. And again, it opens up a window kind of like what we did here. And again, you can see your hard drive. And then I make sure I go to my mock film. And I go to my library. This is where I want to save it. So select it, save, and then you create. Now you know everything's going to be saved into this area and into the area where you want it to be. Now this is the new Premiere Pro. If you haven't done it yet, this is 2025. You just want to make sure you go to the edit window, and then here you are. Now again, a lot of different non-linear editing systems are slightly rearranged in a different way, although most of them will allow you to rearrange it. I'm not sure about Final Cut Pro. It's been a while since I used that. They might not be able to allow you to rearrange it, but they might. Again, those who use it know better. But either way, it's usually formed in some way. For those who don't know, there's usually going to be a timeline sequence, which I'll show you how that's used in a sec. Actually, let me bring in the footage real quick. So you can either hit the import footage, or you can drag and drop. So let's go ahead and import this footage. And let's go ahead and import the audio as well. Okay, but now you want this area is going to be where all of your assets, your footage, and everything's going to be. Now you don't want it to be unorganized looking like this, because this is just, if once you start piling up with audio and visual and assets and all kinds of other stuff, it's just going to become a jumbled mess. You want it to be just as organized as you have it here. So you want to create folders. In Premiere Pro, it's known as bin. If you have Premiere Pro, if you Command B, it just creates a bin. For fun fact, it's called bins because back in the day when they actually used real film, it actually was a bin full of old film, you know, the film that they used with it. So let's see, it's called this video. Oops. Video. Let's create a bin for audio. Let's create a bin for visual assets. Let's create a bin for music. Let's create a bin. Oh yeah, let's create a bin for a sequence. Well, so this is where the sequence is going to be, where the timeline is. Now, if you drag and drop the footage into it, it'll create a, as you see, it'll create a timeline. Now you can see the footage, you can scrub through it and all that stuff. But just keep in mind that whatever footage you bring in here, it's going to create the format from that video. Now, like say for instance, if you brought in a clip from an old TV show where the aspect ratio is 4:3, if you brought that in first, it's going to make the aspect ratio 4:3, and then when you have a 16:9 aspect ratio like this one, it won't match, and in which case, it'll it might be an issue that you're gonna have to deal with. You can always go and change the sequence settings, but again, it's just can be a little bit of a pain if you don't know what you're doing, and so it's better just make sure what you're dragging in here is the aspect ratio that you want in your film. But yeah, so you drag it in, as you can see here, we got here. Notice also over here, it created a sequence a little sequence icon here. You want to again also create a folder for the sequence. So let's create bin sequence. You can abbreviate it and just write SEQ if you want. Drag and drop it in there. Now you got a sequence. Now the reason you want to do this, and again I would rename this. Let's say this is your film. Let's say it's called I'm calling this right now mock film. Let's say mock, and you want to say this is assembly, because any first edit you do, usually if you have a script, you're just putting the film together as according to the script, and you're doing a kind of a quick job of it. It's just so you can kind of get a sense of what film you have and stuff. Ideally, you're going to use every take, or not every take, but every shot that was in the film to help the director just get a sense of where we are. That's an assembly. There's usually only going to be one assembly. But then as you go down, as you start making edits, the director gives some notes, you're going to start creating what's known as a rough draft edit. So let's say, here's what you want to do though. You don't want to just start editing on your assembly, because maybe you have something in here that you liked and you don't want to change, or you might have to go back to. So let's create a duplicate and then rename it rough draft 1, rough cut, or rough cut rather. Now you see why we might need a bin for the sequences, because we're going to start creating a lot of sequences. Now you might create a rough cut and then decide to go in a slightly different direction. So you want to make another duplicate. Now the reason you might want to keep rough cut 1 is because maybe you went in a different direction here, but it's maybe it went in a direction you didn't want, and at least for one scene, and so you want to have the option that you had before of going back and maybe editing using that old edit in some way. So yeah, you want to keep that. And again, you move on to rough cuts, and then fine cuts, and then a final cut. When you get to the final cut, you're going to basically try and create what they know as a final lock, and that's basically going to be the version of the edit where you are going to be able to start adding color correction, or maybe CGI, or sound design, etc. And it's called a lock because you don't want things to change while they're still figuring out the sound design or the color correction, because that's just going to be a pain for them later. So yeah, as you can see here, we got all these different, it's organized. We have the different sequences here going on. Again, I'm just doing the setup. We could talk about maybe in another video the details of how to cut, etc. Hopefully you start to get a hang of it if you just explore it. Really, I just want to get into your head today is the organization of everything, because if you don't have it organized, it's going to become a pain to figure things out. Let me just go over one other thing though, of a technique. Here's, say you got your footage here. Let's make sure we put the footage in the right area. We got footage in the video, put the audio. Now, one thing that's great about Premiere, I'm not sure if it's in DaVinci, hopefully it is too in the other stuff, but one of the things you can do in Premiere is you can sync sound to footage. Now, this film has its own has its own audio. That's me in case you can't tell, but it's not that good of audio. It's the audio straight from the camera, whereas the audio I was recording with is better. It sounds better, a little bit better, but the other one was recorded with the phone. But either way, ideally, we say if you're filming with a film, if you're filming with a boom mic, etc., boom mic sounds better than what's coming out of the camera. You want to sync that footage. So here's how you do it. I used a clap in this one rather than a clapper board, just because it was quicker. And the whole point I was using it for was just for the sync sound. So find it. Sound sync. Henry V Jam. Take 1. So we got that. What you want to do is just find that exact moment where you did a clap, and you hit I, and that basically creates a marker for that area. Do the same thing here, where I clapped. Take 1. Let's get ready to mark. Now they're both marked. Now what you do is, at least here, again, I believe it's Command here. I can't remember which one it is for. I think it's Control, probably under Windows. To select both of these, the audio and the visual. Then you right click or 2-finger tap on your computer, laptop, and go to Merge Clips. You can choose Merge at Endpoints, and then you can also choose this thing to remove the original audio of the clip, so you're not mucking around with that. There's also the option, I believe, to use the audio track channel, I believe, where it will use kind of AI or algorithm to be able to match up the audio, the audio. That's always an option, especially if you did have a sound recording from your camera as well as from the boom mic. But this is why, though, using a clapperboard is the best way. This is the best way to do it. It's technically how they did it back in the day, back when cameras were only able to record only visual. That's why you had the clapperboard, so you can see when it meets the clap, and that's why you can, with this, and you matched it with the spike in sound in the analog recording. So anyway, press OK, and it creates a new image here. Now this is where you would probably want to create another folder too, so you're not getting mixed up with the video and the merged video. So hit Command B again, and you can literally title this merged video if you want, just so you know. But this is where you're going to be getting, once you've merged all the audio and the visual together, this is where you're going to be actually where you go get the actual footage that you're going to be editing with. So actually, let me delete this, because then you would drag this in here. Now you can see that the audio is different because the audio that I recorded with. And strategic leadership. Yeah, right. Perfectly caught me right when I was stuttering. Great. But here you go. That's the only thing I really wanted to show as far as some of those techniques. Anything else hopefully you should be able to explore. You can see here we got tools here. Cutting is kind of one of the main ones you're going to be using. One thing to note, by the way, if you want to do titles, they used to have it up here under New, but now the titles, you can create titles right here. You literally just click it, and then you can just start writing on there, blah, blah, blah. And if you want to edit it, you would go to Effect Controls, and then you go to Text, and then you can choose your font, size, and color even. You can do drop. You can literally... Hey, it's not doing it right. You gotta make sure it's highlighted. There you go. Do I gotta hold it down? Okay, weird. I didn't have to hold it down before. Sometimes Premiere Pro is a little weird that way, where it's like before I didn't have to hold it down. If you find any glitches with Premiere Pro that should be working and it's not working, always restart it. Even maybe restart your computer sometimes. Premiere Pro is great. I like Premiere Pro, but it does have some glitches every now and then. Yeah, so. But yeah, thank you for watching. This is really just a quick basics of setting up an edit for your film. You want to be organized. That's key. You want to be as organized as possible, because once you start getting into it, it can be just a mess down the line. You taking 5 minutes just to find a piece of footage that you could have just found if you just had it in your folders. Also keep in mind, sometimes you will hand an edit off. Maybe you just been editing it for a year and you're just tired of looking at it, and then someone else is saying, hey, I can edit, I'm good at editing, and you might hand it to them, but then they're like, oh, whoa, you got a mess here of all kinds of stuff, and it's just kind of makes it hard for them to help you out. So you want to be as organized as possible, both in here in the system and in your hard drive. But that's it. Thank you for watching.